Why would a man who stalks, kidnaps, and murders people enthrall the public to such an intense degree? The man I'm referring to is Joe Goldberg from the hit show You. In this video, we are going to unpack what You has revealed about the public psyche. Now yes, we could simply dismiss its success as a result of clever and engaging writing. However, I think the reason is much deeper than that. Whenever a story grabs a hold of the public, an archetype is present. Archetypes, in essence, are universal experiences and symbols which provide a kind of psychological blueprint for human behavior. All stories reflect the mind of the writer. The better the writer, the more universally relevant the story. Therefore, if a story grabs the attention of the collective in a major way, an archetype will be present in some form. So in You, our protagonist Joe Goldberg is a highly intelligent and seemingly charming bookstore manager. His character serves as the show's narrator, pulling the audience into his mind and seeing the chain of events from his perspective. On the surface, Joe appears as a polite and well-mannered individual, but beneath this facade lies a deeply obsessed and very dangerous personality. So what is happening? Why would the public take to such a dark tale? It seems that people are frequently sucked in and swayed by Joe's narrative, which is what keeps them engaged despite knowing that he is clearly doing something wrong. If we look at Joe's actions alone in the cold light of day, it's very disturbing. This is a man who consistently manipulates and kills people. This is what he has done every season, and yet knowing all of this, people can't stop watching him. I believe this reveals that the archetype of the shadow is currently being denied within the collective. So how did I come to this conclusion? Well, you see, there is no question that the shadow archetype is very present in the show. The shadow archetype, in essence, is the repressed and denied parts of one's personality, and Joe demonstrates this archetype with his dual nature. He displays a charming and affable exterior while hiding a much darker and more dangerous nature, which the audience sees over the course of the show. But he doesn't just hide it from the world. In a very real sense, he hides it from himself. So Joe himself denies his shadow. He does this with his compelling rationalizing for why he does what he does. In fact, it's a heroic narrative he spins, despite the fact that what he actually does is horrifying. But over the course of 4 seasons, that self-perpetuating narrative starts to break down. In fact, Joe is eventually confronted in season 4 with the depths of his darkness to such an extent that his justifying narratives no longer make sense to even himself. But up until that point, his inner narrative allowed him to rationalize his actions away. But not just for himself, the audience as well. If Joe was seen only from an objective perspective, he would be a very hard character to have as your protagonist. You wouldn't know why you were watching him, and frankly, you would probably feel too disturbed to continue. But his inner monologue is your justification for staying engaged and enthralled with his character. This brings us to the question, if you can be sucked in by the rationalizations of a character who commits violent and heinous crimes, what could you be rationalizing in your own life? Herein lies the genius of the character, in my opinion. Because while he acts out shadow denial in the story, what Joe does on a meta level is reveal our own capacity to do the same, as we, the audience, go along with his rationalizations. This, my friends, is the archetype of the trickster winking at us. Now, one of the utilities of the trickster archetype is to disrupt the status quo and reveal the truth, even if that is a very unflattering truth. In essence, the trickster can be an essential role in confronting and integrating hidden aspects within the psyche, i.e. the shadow. The trickster can transcend boundaries, look at things from multiple perspectives, and intentionally play around with those perspectives, eventually revealing the often hidden and denied truth. The trickster archetype symbolizes the experience and process of having the veil lifted and seeing what's really there. So psychologically, this means seeing parts of yourself that you were totally unaware of. In fact, the trickster quality in people is what allows them to see the often repressed and denied parts of themselves. The public's fascination with Joe has revealed to us our own capacity to rationalize our own shadow nature away. The fact that this show is so wildly popular indicates to me that the collective hasn't had the appropriate space to confront our shadow. Which is why I believe we are so gripped by a character, so overwhelmingly acting out the shadow and yet in total denial of it. It seems to me that we were drawn to it in such a major way because it symbolically depicted something that was happening within ourselves. Shadow denial. Therefore, we would want to know how the story unfolds because on the unconscious level we needed guidance and resolution to this problem. This isn't to judge, quite the opposite. I think to know one's own terrible potential and the capacity to craftily deny it to ourselves and others is great wisdom to have. It allows us to pay proper attention to ourselves, which in turn allows us to become conscious of our shadow. If we are conscious of our shadow, it can be integrated and brought under control, as opposed to it controlling us from the depths of our unconsciousness. You is very much a cautionary tale. Joe's relentless denial of his shadow results in him in Season 4 becoming so totally consumed by it that it takes full control of his personality. He ends up becoming the fully embodied, terrifyingly uninhibited form of his shadow. A warning to all of us that denial of the shadow can only lead to destruction.